Okay. Okay, so thank you for the introduction, Shanae. I am going to bring up my screen and I will also make you the co-host because there might be technology as far as the audio and our videos that I may need assistance with. Okay. Okay. So as Shanae said, we will be talking about structural racism. That is always a tough topic to talk about, but we are going to do the work. Okay. I'm going 1 second. I would like to put this in a mode where everybody can see it.
Just click on present. Yeah, there you go. Beautiful.
There we go. Yes. So, all right. So again, we're going to dive into structural racism. And we understand that it is also a tough topic to discuss. Okay, so some of us may or may not know what structural racism is, but I'm going to go over the definition. Structural racism, okay, it is a system in which public policies, institutional practices, cultural representations, and other norms work in various, often reinforcing ways to perpetuate racial group inequity. It identifies dimensions of our history and culture that have allowed privileges associated with whiteness and advantages associated with color to endure and adapt over time. So, and that was given to us by Aspen. That's a quote. But structural racism, if you look it up, it says it is not something that a few people or institutions choose to practice. Instead, it has been a feature of social, economic, and political systems in which we all exist. And now I'm going to share with you all an introduction of what my team is going to share with you all today. Nonviolence is paramount, and it was most echoed by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in regards to structural racism, equality for civil rights, voting rights, and human rights. We understand that to be all nonviolent acts to create a better world for all, but it wasn't totally nonviolent due to Black lives and allies' lives being lost. However, we've Black and brown people and allies have been voting for decades, and we are still trying to realize his prime dream. Some progress have been made, but not enough. We also know that the blueprints left and reused to pound pavement or march streets haven't saved lives. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Flint, contaminated waters, redlining, the gaps in jobs, education, health equity, judicial system, religious freedom, and sexual orientation is challenged. Laws have been changed, but hearts haven't. Dr. King, Triple Evil's philosophy on racism, poverty, and militarism facing the nation as the biggest insult to the land of the supposed to be free. As we don't advocate for violence, we stand firm on disrupting old comforts and policies that doesn't serve all people justly. Each of our team members will showcase evidence of a need to combat these evils. By the end of our presentation, we are hopeful that we public allies as a whole may be moved to come up with ideas and solutions. We will include personal stories in our presentation and takeaways for you to copy paste, keep it for your records, and keep it for reference to review on your own personal time. We will have a breakout section, and hopefully we come up with some solutions to realize Dr. King's dream. And now we will have Raven. Raven's going to be our opener, and she's going to tie some things together with Dr. King's philosophy.
So, 1 second. Dr. King's beloved community is a realistic, achievable goal by society, coming together, committed to unlearning racial bias through methods of nonviolence. In Dr. King's beloved community, build systems go and resources to eliminate poverty, hunger, and homelessness, all forms of bigotry, discrimination, and prejudice. Instead, we would like to cherish and respect our differences as individuals in the greater society as a whole. Dr. King understood conflict was a natural part of the human experience. He believed conflict shouldn't be fought from a place of hate, but rather with an understanding of friendship and goodwill. Dr. King viewed hating one's opponent was not only immoral but bad strategy, which continued the cycle of revenge and retaliation. Dr. King belief was the beginning of the beloved community. The beginning of the beloved community was the end of segregation, prejudice, bigotry, and discrimination. Until all these battles are won, that will become the beginning of a beloved community. Over 60 years later, we have yet to reach the point of a beloved community. Today, we will be breaking down structural racism, a form of discrimination, and in many cases, segregation that still continues today. We will address health inequality. Just like struggling right now. Health equality, police brutality, incarceration, loans and gentrification, along with the hiring process. Go over there.
Great. So now Raven's going to talk to us about health disparities.
So, when Black and Brown patients complain of believing they are maybe suffering from COVID-related symptoms, medical professionals tend to downplay and or ignore people of color's complaints. This action has disproportionately affected these communities by overexposure of the virus and many other things, including childbirth. This is just one of many ways Black and Brown people being misdiagnosed within the healthcare field is higher in incidence and prevalence, which could lead to serious disease or even death. That's my word.
So now, thank you, Raven. That was enlightening, and you touched on birth rates. I don't know if a lot of people understood that. Okay, so employment and opportunities denied by Jason. Jason Hughes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're talking about racial discrimination in the hiring process and hiring practices. And first of all, I wanted to tell you what it looks like. 36% more whites get callbacks when they go through the hiring process than equally qualified Black applicants. I'm sorry. And even at the interview process, there are certain forms of bias as they manifest that hold people back or to try to disqualify people of color. The first is considered unconscious bias, whereas they may just notice your name is Tyrone Johnson or Enzima Hutchins or something that sounds like not like Biff or Meg or anything like that. And so that just kind of turns them off because it's not similar to something that they're used to. Affinity bias, for example, they'll use phrases like, how do you think you could fit into the culture of this company? Or we're like a mom and pop, this type thing. We started off like this, and it was a family business, and um, that family is from a culture that's completely different from your own because they're not people of color, but they tend to go that way. And then there's conformity bias, where they want to hire only people who they think will agree with everything that they say. They want you to conform to everything that they want to basically keep you in a state of enslavement if you do get the job. And then there's confirmation bias, where they use non-standardized interview questions strategically, and or that are geared to prove a candidate is unqualified. So if they already made up their mind about not wanting to hire you, they want to try to twist the knife to some degree to try to prove to you and to kind of justify within themselves that they're making the right choice by asking you twisted questions. And oftentimes they even ask illegal questions just to see if you would stumble, because you may know that it's an illegal question, or they want to rock the boat and make you feel uncomfortable so that you'll be shaken, and then they'll come at you with these other strategic questions to just keep you stumbling so that um, you won't you'll lose your confidence and your composure. And during the hiring process, it's not the only time. Part of the hiring process, if you do get past that first place, there's wage setting. And when they set the wages, and if they do happen to make an offer, there are differences in the wages that they pay you for the same position. They'll pay black men much less for the same pitch than their white counterparts. And then black women were making 61 cents on a dollar from other qualified white male applicants. And black workers are twice as likely to be unemployed as their white counterparts. African American workers regularly face higher unemployment rates than whites, and there are several explanations and reasons for this. Because blacks often face just outright discrimination in the labor market, but they're less likely to attend and graduate college, and this stems from the fact that we face greater financial barriers as well. And even among college graduates, as you can see here, could you go to the next slide too? That no matter what the education level, there is underemployment, and people are underutilized for the skills that they possess. Black workers are less likely than white workers to be employed in a job that's consistent with their level of education. So if I'm an engineer, and nobody's really hiring me as an engineer, then I'm underemployed if I have to flip burgers because I still have to feed my family. And it's also underemployment if you are forced by the labor conditions to have to take a part-time position because they don't want to pay for for your benefits. And this is what they use to keep people in a place where um, they are still feeling less than, and they treat people like things. And once you treat a person like a thing, it's a terrible, terrible outcome, because they never get to blossom into the person that they're supposed to be, and they can't be productive members of the society. And um, with this, I am going to conclude with just an observation that we have to um, be knowledgeable and aware when we see these practices in the hiring process. So be on the lookout for the things with the culturally fit. When people say things like culture and fit, you need to be on the lookout, and be on the lookout for tokenism. If you see in the culture, when you look on the website and there's nobody that look like you might, and look at the other people who might be there for the interview, because they may actually get you there and you may want the job, but is it the place that's right for you? Is it on the long term going to be a place where you're going to thrive, or where you're just going to feel like you sold yourself out and your individuality and your diversity? And know that your diversity is a strength, and some companies will appreciate what your diversity and strengths bring to the table. And with that, I will it up to the next presenter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I didn't think about that, the comforts of looking at tokenism. I really appreciate that. And you also mentioned confirmation bias. That is something extra in my vocabulary. I appreciate that. So now we move on to Gerard, and he's going to talk to us about the raw and the real community interview.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? So I'm with Public Allies. I've been placed with career resources, and they got me over here at the halfway houses. So I'm like in direct contact with people that have just come home from being from these institutions, and they spoke to me about their institutionalization due to being incarcerated. So I'm just going to give you guys some of the insight that I just got from them. And it's 4 houses over here, females and males. So I got to really, get a lot of insight from them and how they feel and their mental state after being institutionalized. So the first thing I want to talk about is total institutions, which are like the military or jails or mental institutions. And these are places that essentially controls almost all aspects of its members' lives. If I'm speeding too fast, also you guys tell me, because I know we got time. It's a timetable, and I don't want to go over my time. So okay, so total institutions, they tend to control every aspect of your life and what you can do, what you can't do, when you can take a shower, when you can eat, how you can eat, what you have to wear, when you have to wear certain things, when you can see your family, when you can't. Like, it just takes over your whole life. All right. So the second thing I would like to, the first thing the first point I would like to get into is reacclimating into society, and how hard it is coming home to your family after being in that certain type of state for such a long time. And it builds you've built a structured way of doing things, and that whole way of doing things is kind of has to be thrown to the back burner, because in general population, people don't usually do it like that. People move on a whim. It seems like as if they're living in chaos when they come home, because everyone is just doing their own thing. So the simplest things, from waking up in the morning, going to the bathroom, brushing their teeth, washing their face, and getting in the shower, these simple things they've been doing for years, they can't tend to do them that much because they're moving in with their mothers or families, and they wake up in the morning and there's someone in the bathroom, and that will throw their whole day off. Them not being able to wake up, go to the bathroom, wash their face, brush their teeth, and go through their daily process will essentially throw their whole day off. Another big thing that they talked about when it came to reacclimating is that they built a certain all right, so for instance, they talked about this saying, it's out of sight, and it means that you're out of mind. So once they was incarcerated, they feel like as if a lot of people left them when they was in there, and the world just moved on without them, and they seem to have a chip on their shoulder. When they come home, they don't usually want to deal with a lot of people, because they feel like a lot of their old friends or family members tend to have left them and on the back burner, and now they don't want any help from them. And I tried to tell them that that's not going to help you in any way in society. You not wanting help from the people that love you, but they're sticking to their guns, and they're like, no, I'm going to do it on my own. They wanted to leave me, so now I'll just deal with these issues on my own. And these are some of the hardest things about reacclimating to society, because when it boils down, society, the general population is going to do what they're going to do. It's going to move, the world is going to turn. Everyone's living their own lives, and they don't seem to want to accept that. They want to fight the fact that why you guys didn't stay with me, why you guys didn't do this time with me, why you guys weren't there for me, and it's bothersome. Okay, so boom, I'm going to move on to the disconnect when it comes to technology. This is another big thing that hurts them a lot when they come home. From the simplest things of, some people, they was incarcerated when people was filling out paper applications, bringing them to the job, talking to the manager, and essentially getting a job on the spot. Whereas now they have to go on Indeed, which they have no understanding of, or they have to go to these websites and fill out the applications, which they've never done before. And it's like, it hurts them in the end. It's taking them hours to fill out these applications. They don't understand the technology. The simplest thing will stop them. They got to ask someone else. And it just really bothers them a lot. And other things that I see I see them seem to talk about when it comes to technology is the simplest thing, like the checkout counter. When you go to the grocery store, they've never self-checked out before. So it's like they're standing at this machine and they're like, they don't know what to do. Now they're looking for someone to help them. And it's like, they don't want people to help them. They're grown men or women, and they don't want to have someone, essentially price check their groceries for them or whatever. These simple things bother them. The little robot that kind of sways around the grocery stores now, they really don't like that thing for some reason. And I don't know why, but they really hate that robot for some reason. And even the simplest thing from the kiosk and McDonald's, trying to use that thing, it throws them all off. But the biggest thing that I've seen that bothers them a lot is when they was incarcerated, they were in school, they was in colleges, and they used paper and books, and that's how they submitted their work. But now when they come home, it's technology. I mean, it's on the internet and emails, and you got to submit your work through email or this, that, and the third. They have no idea how to do it, and it's bothersome. They just like, it hinders them in that way, being disconnected from technology for so long. It's a need in our society nowadays, and I feel like they should implement it more into these institutions because people are coming home lost in the sauce when it comes to that type of stuff. Okay, I'm gonna move on to PTSD and the culture of prison. And when I spoke to these guys, they spoke a lot about the hyper alertness that comes from being incarcerated for so long. So it's like, it's hard for them to be so comfortable around the chaotic states of the world. Going in Walmart, it's a million people running around, walking around, no one's paying attention to you, but to them, it's like they have to pay attention to them. And it's hard because it's so many people doing so many things. It really bothers them. It's like it's PTSD essentially. It changes the way that their brain works, and they're not function properly. It takes time. I told them it takes time. Within time, you'll get better at it. But one guy told me a story that he was like trying to grab something off the top shelf, and he felt someone behind him. So he turns around really quick and, gets on defense. And there's like a 90-year-old woman behind him looking at him like he's crazy. And he's like, he just can't not be aware and alert of all of the circumstances within his life anymore. And that PTSD is just like, it's stressful, going to Six Flags, a whole bunch of people, kids, and sounds that they haven't heard before. And just like the simplest things is, to throw them off course. This PTSD, it's really bothering. Okay. And then I'm going to move on to the reasons for recidivism. And this one was big for me because I learned that 85% of Connecticut inmates, they recidivate within 5 years, and that's a big percentage of people going in and out of jail. And I feel like it's due to the vast amount of people within these jails. They have a limited education, and due to being in jail, they have a limited unemployment history. So when they come home, it makes them they can't compete in the job market because firstly, they don't have any employment history, and they have a limited education. This leads to low wages. Now they have to work if they're willing, they work at McDonald's or some type of job that is probably going to pay them lower wages, which essentially makes them feel like they got to get some type of part-time job, or they try to get a side hustle. And this all essentially leads them back to being incarcerated. Is like a self-sealing loop, and it's really hard to break. I feel like these people recidivate so much because inside of these jails, they tell me that it's not about rehabilitating them. It's about holding them for a specific amount of time. And this specific amount of time is not helpful if you're not a person that knows that. If you're not a reader, if you go to jail, they're taking everything from you that you love to do. If you're not an avid reader, most likely they're going to take everything you love to do. And the only thing you could really do is read. And most people aren't readers. So they go to jail, they don't read. They do negative things or things that's not helpful to them mentally, or that's going to help them when they home. And they say that all of the programs are jokes. The people that come in to do the programs, they're jokes. They don't care about you really rehabilitating yourself. They just there to get a check, to get a job, like most people are. And they're no help. So
Indeed.
that's the last one. And these are the, I feel like these structural institutions are, you know, are killing us on the end, and it needs to be, something needs to be looked at, because these guys are coming out, and they're coming out to improper, they're coming out dysfunctional, as I can say.
Thank you. Dysfunctional, disenfranchised, you don't fit in, you don't fit out. And that was a lot. And thank you for bringing us into the mind of some real people. The first thing is folks who want to invest in these communities that we plan to work with, the first thing you need to do is action research. And a lot of times we think we help communities by giving them what we think we want to help them with, instead of finding out what they really need by talking to them. So that was powerful. Thank you. So the next person we have is to speak on gentrification is IT.
Hello, everyone. So what is gentrification? Disadvantaged neighborhood, affluent people, change, renovate, displacement, improvement. These are the words, language, the terms that you're gonna find in the definition of gentrification. The real definition of the gentrification is the process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by the wealthier people moving in, improving housing, and attracting new businesses, typically displacing the people who are living there, mostly minorities, low-income families, and also destroying the historical sites sometimes. Next. Some of the pros, some of the good things about gentrification is boost the community in the area, better education, change and renovate the neighborhoods, bring businesses and jobs. But the negative side of it is racial disparities, displacement of minorities, and undeserved community. So like when we talk about the better schools and boosting the economic in neighborhood, that's not gonna help the people who were there. It's because gentrification is already causing the displacement of the minority. That means like only gentrification helps is the who are already in the advanced place in terms of economics, in terms of like background, I guess like privileged people. It helps only the privileged people, even if it boosts the economic in the neighborhood. So I learned that gentrification is mostly negative and it doesn't really help the community that's supposed to help. Next one. And then this is one of the thing that helped gentrification to speed up, which is the Community Reinvestment Act, which passed in 1977. So it was originally passed against of a backdrop of urban decay and a lack of investment in the communities. It's supposed to encourage bank lending to low and moderate income neighborhoods. It's supposed to eliminate the bank redlining of poor neighborhoods that contribute to the growing of the ghettos in 1970s. In redlining, neighborhoods were designed as not good of investment. However, instead of helping the community, helping the people who live in those disadvantaged area, it did the opposite. It benefited the white folks and bring the more problems and increasing the displacement of more people in the community. I want to read a section of the like, articles. It said that The result is nearly all financial institutions nationwide have passed their Community Reinvestment Act infections since 2009, even though racial disparities in lending remain as pronounced as ever. So that shows, that tells me that there's still a structural racism. This gentrifications and loan lending is goes back to the structural racism, and also what Martin Luther King talked about in the triple evils, which is it's related to the evils of poverty, evils of racism. Next one.
Exciting.
Thank you. This is a chart that I got from Reveal News, and this shows the what happened in the mortgage loans in Point Breeze in the one of the neighborhood in Philadelphia, um, and you can clearly see the people white people who got loans versus the black people who got loans, and then white people who got denials, and then number of white people who got denied um, by by bank versus the uh, number of black people who got denied, and this clearly shows that there's no that Community Reinvestment Act didn't really help the minorities, the Black community. It just brought more, it made the community more vulnerable to the displacement. Next slide, please. And this Sunday, I just Cardi B tweeted this. The gentrification in Harlem and Washington Heights makes me so sad. It truly breaks my heart. And I felt like this is very relevant to what I was researching. So I included that. Next slide, please. And these are some of the pictures that shows the how it looks in the neighborhood where gentrification are happening. And I like this quotations that said, now that the neighborhood is nice, why do I have to move? So this picture is from Chicago back in 2016. It was protest against the gentrification. And it's true that it's supposed to, that the Community Reinvestment Act supposed to help them, supposed to make their life better or the community better. But it's like, it was telling them once once a community is better, or like when neighborhoods look good, it's not for you. You have to move somewhere else, ghetto. So the nice place is always for rich people or white people, or yeah, so someone who are more advantaged. Thank you. That's all.
Wow, that was powerful, IT. And just this picture says 1,000 words. My goodness. And thank you for so much of the data. Wow, look at all the hits that Cardi B received. So now this brings us to police violence and racial profiling. And I will present. So just take 3 seconds to look at this photo. Is this not enough? The man, the animal that has his knee in his neck is not struggling. He has his hand in his pocket. He's basically chilling and murdering at the same time. He's not wearing a Klan's outfit. He's not a regular citizen. He's a police officer that's supposed to be held to a certain standard. And he took a life. But this is just a high profile case. Imagine all the people who aren't in this photo. These are just a few. It's 24, but is this not enough? You know, we heard, you know, back in the days, you see clans and the clans hats and doing rallies, burning crosses throughout the night. But this is broad daylight, people with cameras yelling at them to stop. And it's not, you know, there's no justice. It's not only happening to our men. The numbers are insane. Marching aren't reducing the numbers. The numbers are still climbing, and there's no justice. No one wants to be part of the hashtag. And at the most, people think that's all they can do is put a hashtag, because things are being proven, is on camera, and there's still no justice. So people, they just say her name in memory. It's almost an act of acceptance. We understand, we remember Breonna Taylor. In the middle of a pandemic, folks are still acting like animals. Okay, so according to Yale, a study was done, and it is considered now a public health emergency for Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color. According to the national database compiled and maintained by the Washington Post, we have a public emergency situation. While several stats data are publicly available, the researchers decided to enter it into a scientific literature and present it using methods that are accepted by science. Darwin Boatwright, a professor of emergency medicine at Yale, stated that fatal police shootings of Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, the BIPOC, are recognized and treated as a public health emergency. Let that sit in your mind for a minute. It is now considered a public health emergency. Other ways that lives are being taken is through time. Taking lives another way. We understand that is a lucrative business to fill beds. You're not filling beds, you're not making money. It's all politics, is the new Jim Crow. Here's a picture of a man, happy, people cheering, he just got out. We figure, oh, justice. And so what happens after that smile? So when he applied for those jobs, he's in the Walmart, like Gerard mentioned, he's trying to navigate a job through Indeed. Even if he received a loan, some money, he still can't get back time, his youth, experiences. Now he may have post-traumatic stress. Okay, so this guy is Van Dyke. I remember watching this on the news. 2 men who was wrongfully served as a combined total of almost 39 years in prison for a gang rape that never happened and were exonerated by a Manhattan court. Van Dyke, Perry, and Gregory Counts were convicted of kidnapping, raping, sodomizing a woman in New York and Central Park in 1991, but the woman made it all up. And you can find us at oxygen.com, or you could Google it, look it on the news, look up Van Dyke and Perry for more information. So I have a link I would like to share. And let me see. I'm gonna, this link that I'm going to share is about a man who was imprisoned and let out years later. And I want you to see what happened. Okay, so we can't hear it. Okay, so we have, so we can go back, maybe we can get the words up because we don't have the sound. Okay, so this man committed suicide in Rikers Island. He was jailed in Rikers Island, jailed without being convicted of a crime. Saturday, Cleve took his own life at his home in the Bronx. He was 22 years old in 2010. He was 16 when he was sent to Rikers prison without suspicions.
Obtained explosive video showing the violence to which Khalif was subjected to there. Surveillance camera footage shows him being abused on 2 separate occasions. In one clip from 2012, the teenager is seen inside Rikers Central Punitive Segregation Unit, better known as the Bing. As a guard escorts Khalif to the showers, Khalif appears to speak, and then the guard suddenly violently hurls him to the floor, although he's already handcuffed. In a separate video clip from 2010, Khalif is attacked by almost a dozen other teenage inmates after he punches a gang member who spat in his face. The other inmates pile onto Khalif and pummel him until guards finally intervene. Khalif's case led to calls for reforming New York's criminal justice system.
On the night of his arrest years ago, Khalif Browder was walking home from a party with his friends in the Bronx, May 15, 2010, when he was stopped by police based on a tip that he had robbed someone weeks earlier. He told HuffPost Live what happened next.
They had searched me, and the guy actually said, at first he said I robbed him, I didn't have anything on me. And that's
you say nothing, you mean no weapon and none of his property?
No weapon, no money, anything he said that I allegedly robbed him for. So the guy actually changed up his story and said that I actually tried to rob him, and then another police officer came and they said that I robbed him 2 weeks prior, and then they said we're gonna take you to the precinct and most likely we're gonna let you go home, and then I never went home.
That's right. Khalif Browder did not return home for 33 months, almost 3 years, even though he was never tried or convicted. For nearly 800 days of that time, he was held in solitary confinement. He maintained his innocence, requested a trial, but was only offered plea deals while the trial was repeatedly delayed. Near the end of his time in jail, the judge offered to sentence him to time served if he entered a guilty plea and told him he could face 15 years in prison if he was convicted. He refused to accept the plea deal, was only released when the case was dismissed. We're joined once again by Jennifer Gonnerman, reporter, author, contributing editor at New Yorker magazine. She was the first to report Khalif's suicide in her.
Okay, so we, let me see if I can share the screen again. So we heard Khalif story, and we understand that is just one case. He committed suicide, and there's so many other people who had committed suicide. So he was let out, he committed suicide, damages was done, he was abused inside. And this is a poem by me. I wrote this as a quick, powerful poem. And I wrote this for all the many folks who are in prison, lose their freedom, and disproportionately Black people, Indigenous people, people of color are in prison. And there's a lot of, you're not just making license plates, you're cutting grass, you're making furniture, there's a whole lot, the phone calls. Then when you leave prison, there's a debt that you have to pay back in some cases, and insurance. There's a lot that happens. There's a reason why you're not 12 years old saying, when I grow up, I want to house people in a cage because they might have done something wrong. No, it's a business. So the name of this poem is called News, a Redundant Report. Page Black man, once again freed, into society after serving 25 years, life. Let out of darkness and led into another. Then paid monetary insults, sorry notes, 5 minutes fame. Some fostered shame, divided pride, logged with being unable to just adjust, traumatized and afraid to just be. making headlines that reads, "A Black man committed suicide, leaving an unwritten open letter to everyone that it was his broken soul's definition of free." And that's the end of my presentation. And so quickly, we're gonna, as a team, give you our isms that we, a snapshot of our little personal stories. We're gonna take about like 30 seconds or a minute or so to just tell you. My ism would be being, well, I'm Black first. I was born that way. But being a Muslim, I've been harassed, and I'm not the person that you usually look at and harass. But I've been harassed when I'm in my full hijab. I think when I'm in my full garb covered, people probably think I'm foreign, so they harass me. I've been asked, "Where are you from? What's that thing in your head?" And on YouTube is a thing where if you look up where people just randomly snatching off people's hijabs and pulling them, their hijabs off. I tell people, don't let my hijab fool you. And I've been structurally for jobs, I've been caught in, had a great interview over the phone, come in, seem excited, looking at my resumes when I show up. You know how you get it, look up and down like you're short, somebody look up, look down. And I'm walking out without the job. I'm not the representation they want. And if you all remember back when President Obama was going for president, they was like, "Oh no, he's a Muslim. No, he can't be president. He's a Muslim." It doesn't stop there. You know, it doesn't, you know, so that's my ism. That's my snapshot. And I have Raven had to go to a meeting. So she asked me to share her her snapshot story. And she said, I'm going back in the chat. She said her personal story is being perceived as an angry Black woman in the job interviews, preventing me from getting the job that she wanted. Also being a Black trans woman, my life expectancy is 35, a much shorter span than white, by a much shorter span than my white counterparts. Most trans women of color murders are not even properly investigated because of the belief that they did something to become a victim. That was her snapshot. So we have our other team members. Jason, would you like to share your snapshot? Your personal story?
You are on mute.
All right, I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay? Back in 2000, I just left a job that I really enjoyed, and I was working at the neighborhood cafe down the street. It was like a bar and grill, and I got into an argument with my girlfriend that ended up moving in with because shortly before I left the job, I had a fire and lost everything I owned in my apartment, and that whole displacement kind of put me where I ended up moving in with my girlfriend, and I barely had enough of the right clothes to go to and from work. So I get this other job, and um, there is tension because you love somebody, but you can't just live together sometimes. And we get into a verbal argument. But she has a 15-year-old who who just didn't really like me so much. And so while we were verbally arguing, the 15-year-old called the police. The argument was over about 20 minutes before they came. And when they came to the door, the 15-year-old said, "Look at my face, look at my face." And I went to the door. I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" Because she's saying, "Look at my face." And the cop said, "Put your cigarette out." And I'm like, "Why? I'm just smoking a cigarette in my home." and the cops threw me to the porch and started beating me with their clubs for what seemed like an eternity. Um, they put the club across my throat and knelt on it. And I'm a trained martial artist, but in a situation like that, I know that the best thing I could do is to curl up in the ball or something and protect my um, the areas that are vulnerable, whereas I might be able to walk away with my life, even if it's in handcuffs.
Wow.
And then they put so many charges. They put 18 years of charges on me that I had hanging over my head for about 3 to 5 years. That I had to go through a whole bunch of stuff based on the false charges, and with notarized affidavits from the woman. And of course, she did convince the child, that hey, that went way too far. There was notarized affidavits, and the lawyer I paid for would not accept them to be used in my defense.
Wow.
These are your tax dollars at work.
Mm. Thank you for that vivid, powerful story. IT, would you like to share next?
Sure.
We have about 2 more minutes.
Yeah, so I came here as an immigrant, so as a refugee. I mean, there's always like discriminations because of language barrier and the accent and all those things. But I want to talk about in general, like what is happening now against the Asian communities. Like older generation, older people are um, being bullied and being beaten by um, people on the street, and that even happened to my own parents few years back in 2013. They were walking, they just don't speak any they are illiterate in their own language. That means they cannot speak English, and they were on their way home from relatives. They were attacked by some of the teenager and were kicked on the back, and they were chased. And my cousin happened to be around there, and she comforted them and they left. But it was just so heartbroken to hear that from my cousin once they got home. Luckily she was there, but these things are happening to the elderly in our community, or the older people who cannot speak language. And um, I feel like oftentimes our story goes unheard, as like many other minorities stories. Yeah.
Wow. I'm sorry for that, IT. That is horrible. Wow. I'm so sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, it was really hard to accept the fact that you cannot even be there when your parents sacrifice everything to come to bring you to the U.S. For the better life, and they are the one who are being attacked and not being there to help is really, yeah, that thought is really bothering.
As a person of color and immigrant. Thank you. And then that brings us to our final person to share, Gerard.
Oh, wait, could I just interject one quick thing?
Well, we only have
Uh,
1 minute left. I got my
oh, okay.
warning. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Connecticut has more prisons than New York. I mean, than
Yeah.
Texas.
Jason,
Yeah.
we have Gerald got to do his turn.
Oh, I got you, Jared.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Go.
Okay. So dealing with the specific thing I presented on, I've been surrounded around the vast amount of men in my family. Well, to keep it real, all of the men in my family, they all were incarcerated at one time or another, and they all did certain levels of time in certain institutions, whether it's the federal institution or the state institution. And I can tell and see, I've seen my whole life how they was able to deal with these PTSDs and these social anxieties. And I've seen it on firsthand, but I've never took the time to truly pay attention because it's been so normalized around me and my family, because you know, my whole life I've seen this. My whole life I've known people to go to jail, friends, family, women, males. So it's like I've never truly paid attention to what they go through after they come home until recently. And I just wanted to let you guys know that, you know, they're not always going to say anything, you know, and some people you might know not incarcerated before, or even when it comes to guys in the military, because that's a total institution. These guys, you or do certain things, you know, you guys gotta, even if you don't know if they did time or not, you gotta look at situations and try to understand that they might have been through something. They might be coming from somewhere else. They're not weird. They're not crazy. They have just been through some stuff, and it's up to us to not cater to them, but understand them. Be conscious. Don't make them feel like they're not a part of society, because they are. For a while now, they're back with these certain mental discrepancies. Don't make them not ours. They still our family. They're still our loved ones. They are still citizens, and they still should be looked at as such. So that's what I just wanted to throw out there, man. You know, it's more than 1 million people incarcerated, 600 and something people coming home every year. You're gonna run into somebody that did some time in a total institution. Just make sure that you are conscious and aware that these people are around and these people are here. So, you know, don't ostracize them.
Thank you, because yes, we want to humanize everyone. Everybody deserves a chance, and the fact that people are disproportionately put in prison and other people are getting a slap on the wrist and second chances, or to do community service of their choice. And we understand Connecticut has one of the largest prison system, and Jason told us earlier that we have more prisons in Connecticut than in Texas. It's a lucrative business, and we are the richest states, and this is where a lot of the money is coming from. These are some takeaways, and we're gonna wrap it up. We have takeaways. These books you should read: Prison Profiteers. This is basis documentary. These aren't some fantasy books. This is a serious business. We also have The New Jim Crow, Why We Can't Wait by Dr. Martin Luther King, and Powernomics. You know, economics is another way to hold people with the ball and chain, and that's by Claude Anderson. You know Claude Anderson. If you don't know, you definitely need to Google right after this meeting. And we have a wonderful quote. Jason will close us out with a quote. Okay, JC, are you on mute? Okay, so I will read the quote to close us out. All right, Jason.
Okay.
There. Are you there? Do you want to read the quote to close it out? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Kofi
Wrap it up.
Annan, a Ghanaian diplomat and former Secretary General of the United Nations, said, "If our hopes of building a better and safer world are to become more than wishful thinking, we will need the engagement of volunteers." And likewise, our President Barack Obama also stated that change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, team, for everything. Please check the chat if you all, everybody.